Thanks, Jim. It's an honor to be here with the American Veterans Center. And as he mentioned, welcome to the panel on leading women and trailblazers in the U.S. military. This panel is sponsored by Northrop Grumman Corporation, so we also want to thank them. We have one panelist who will be coming in a little bit later, but we're going to get started because we have some amazing women that are going to be with you today. Just to give a little bit of my background, as Jim mentioned, I graduated from West Point in '94. I served as an intelligence officer for 14 years in the United States Army and Army Reserves. Some of my assignments included being a Battalion S2 at 2nd ID in Korea, working on a joint mission as a Chief Wash Officer at Incirlik Air Force Base in Turkey. I spent 6 months in Bosnia with 1st ID and then 6 months again with 1st AD in Tuzla, Bosnia. Served 3 years in Germany and then stateside Colorado, Maryland, DC, and Virginia, where I finally separated as a major. And then I co-founded the GI Film Festival. So for those of you who don't know, it's a nonprofit film festival. It brings Hollywood and the military together for a week every spring in DC and then every fall in San Diego. The mission of the festival is to preserve the stories of men and women in the uniform and through television, film, and special events, and to help bridge that civilian-military divide. So I'm happy to be here today to help moderate the panel for today. So just a quick show of hands, how many people are going to be going into the Army? I think we have a lot of cadets, okay, and how many people sorry, let me say military, sorry, just not Army, I'm Army-focused military. Yeah, now we've got a little more hands, great. So it's a lot of people who are going to be serving in there. And how many people who have already served in the audience today? Okay, wonderful. Well, this panel will be definitely instrumental and helpful for a lot of you going in, and you're gonna actually learn something from people who've already served. So our first panelist today that I'd like to introduce is Senior Chief Petty Officer Mary Cunningham. She's retired from the United States Coast Guard. Mary Cunningham was the first African-American female and the first active duty female to make Chief Damage Controlman when she was advanced from DC-1 to DCC in August 2007. She was also promoted to Senior Chief in 2012. She's originally from Syracuse, New York, and she's had multiple deployments all around the country and the world. She served in Kodiak, Alaska, Governor's Island, New York, Brooklyn Air Station, and spent most of her time in Virginia. She served on 2 different ships, serving at the Coast Guard cutter. She is just recently retired in September 2016, and currently she's going to school to study a master's degree in business administration with an emphasis on human resources. She has twin 8-year-old boys, and her husband is also retired Air Force. So let's please welcome Chief Petty Officer Mary Cunningham. And our next panelist is Sergeant Major Angela Manis. She is a veteran from the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. In January '92, she volunteered for drill instructor duty. She graduated from the Marine Corps as a platoon honor recruit. I want to note that, that's very important. After she completed drill instructor school at Parris Island, she was assigned to 4th Recruit Training Battalion, where she served as an Oscar Company drill instructor for 2 years. Among her numerous assignments, she was in the 9th Engineer Support Battalion, the 3rd Force Service Support Group in Okinawa, Japan. She served as the Adjutant Weapons and Field Training Battalion, Marine Corps Recruit Depot in Parris Island, 2nd Marine Logistics Group, Combat Logistics Regiment, where she also served as the Battalion Sergeant Major for Combat Logistics Battalion 8. She's deployed 3 times overseas to Camp Fallujah, Iraq in 2007, then to Camp Leatherneck and Camp Dyer in Afghanistan in 2009, and then she went back to Afghanistan again in 2010. In June 2013, she reported to Marine Barracks in Washington, D.C. for duty as Sergeant Major of the oldest post of the Corps. In November 2014, she became the Depot Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps Recruit Depot in Parris Island. She's got so many awards, too many to name right now, but she's currently serving as Sergeant Major, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Parris Island, and Eastern Recruiting Region, and she was the first woman appointed Sergeant Major of Parris Island in its entire 101-year history. She plans to retire in June 2007 after 30 years of service. Let's please welcome Sergeant Major Angela Manis. So ladies, you have had some amazing careers, and you've had just long distinguished bios that I probably could have gone on and on for much longer talking about what they've done. But the first question I want to ask, and I'm sure that many of you want to hear, is what inspired you to join the military? And we'll start with you, Senior Petty Officer.
What inspired me? Well, I had no immediate family in the military. So I used to see my uncle come in from all these different areas that he shared. And so as soon as I graduated high school in June, I went to live with him down in New Orleans. And I signed up for LSU because I was planning on going to college, but I was going to work with him just to see what he did, and he was doing nothing. So I was like, is this all you do in the Coast Guard? I could do that. So I know, every time I tell that story, I said that at my retirement, and he was like, what? But I went with him, and I was like, I could do that, although he was a HS, so he was a health service technician, nothing to take away from them, but I wasn't with the blood and gut type thing, so I actually went damage control, and damage control is a plumber, welder, carpenter, firefighter, and CBR, which they deal with chemical, biological radiation. So I felt that that was gonna be more challenging for me, so that's what he inspired me to come in the military and go that field.
Thank you. Same question for Sergeant Major Manis.
Okay, can you hear me? Good afternoon. How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Good, good. Glad to hear it. Well, listen, the reason I became a Marine is because my father was a Marine. He served for 27 years. And growing up in that household, I pretty much already knew how to wake up early, just like you, get online, get dressed. Everything was regimented. So becoming a Marine was not a far-fetched idea for me. It took a little bit longer. I was 27 when I first, as you were 24, when I came into the Marine Corps. And I decided that I was only going to do maybe 4 years. In 2017, I will be at 30 years. 3 kids, 3 separate deployments. So, you know, I'm kind of, okay. Thank you. Thank you. But I didn't tell you that for the applause. I'm telling you that because I need a replacement. You know, she mentioned something about all of you, raise your hand if you're going to join the military. That's outstanding. Thank you for serving this country. Maybe a different cloth, but you're going to serve. I appreciate that. So my question is, how many of you want to be Marines? Ever? Okay, very well. I'll see you later. We'll talk. No, it's a good thing. No, I was a drill instructor, right? But I'm not a drill instructor in this capacity right now, so I'm friendly.
Yeah. She's now on the recruiting
Especially the one
side.
with the
That's
sunglasses
right.
on. I'm friendly, real to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he must have had eye surgery
profiling you.
recently. That's the only reason why he would wear that.
All right.
I'm guessing. Okay. But you ladies bring up a really good point that a lot of people who serve, it seems, have had family members who are in the military. Again, by show of hands, how many of you have had family members who are in the military? And maybe is that one of the reasons that
That's
inspired you to
outstanding.
serve? So we're going to thank them all for their service too.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into some of the meat of the questions. Right now, we're at a dangerous time in our world. Actually, I don't know if there's ever been a non-dangerous time in our world. It's just constant wars are going on. It seems you guys, everyone's had multiple deployments. Was there ever a time in your career where you were scared or nervous about a job or a mission? And then what happened, and then how did you get through it? And then I'll start with you, Sergeant Major, for this question.
Okay. Was there ever a time that I was scared, or how did I get through it? Mm-hmm. Probably the hardest time for me was preparing my Marines for each combat deployment. Because the Marines that I took with me, they're your age. I'm looking at this audience, they were young. And they didn't know a lot about life, much less about being a Marine, and taking care of those that are to your left and to your right. So my scariest time, what I was most concerned about is training them, getting them ready for what we were getting ready to do. So as you heard, I was a combat logistics sergeant major when we went to Fallujah and Camp Dwyer. Fallujah in 2007, Camp Dwyer in 2008, and again in 2009. Those were all deployments where we left with the same amount of Marines that we came back with. Now that training was intense, and people ask you to do a lot of things that are going to get you out of your comfort zone. That to me was probably the hardest and the most concerning. That's where I got most of this gray hair. Yeah. But I say that to you in all seriousness. If you're going to commit yourself to taking care of your brother and your sisters, so people like me won't worry about it.
Great. I think that's a common theme I hear from people who've served, especially in combat, it's never, I was worried about myself. It was always, I was worried about the person to the left and to the right of me and making sure that they were safe. So I'm going to ask you that same question, Chief Petty Officer Cunningham.
Mine was as well training. Being on the ships, we have to make sure that they knew all the damage control mechanisms in order to save the ship in case it went down or in case something happened to it. So any plumbing, any welding activities. I remember actually we went on the side of the hull and we got a hole in it because he rammed it. The captain wound up ramming it and put a side in a hole. And I had to actually go over the side of the ship to actually do the welding before we can get back underway. So making sure that everyone is safe and that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as the damage control, because we were the ones that had to make sure that the training was up in par. So just making sure that the training was good and that they knew exactly what they had to do and needed to do, because I had to sleep at night. And so in order for me to sleep at night, I had to make sure that my people were trained up in order to make sure that that was good. But it was mostly training my people.
Excellent. And training, that's a very common theme. Now, I know this is a panel that's talking about women and leadership, and so I want to address that. Now, when I was serving, we never really talked about being a woman soldier. It was just kind of being a soldier, and who just happened to be a woman. And now it seems that there's a lot of movement of getting rid of the adjective. But we're going to talk a little bit about that now that women are getting integrated into the combat arms, and now that women are going to Ranger School and these other special schools. During your service, did you guys ever see a difference in how your peers treated you for your role as a woman or other women that were in the service with you? And how did you handle that? Now, I'll go back to you, Sergeant Major.
Okay, thank you. I've never really seen a difference in how anyone, my brothers, were treating me. When I was a young Lance Corporal, that's an E3 in the Marine Corps. Remind you, this is back in 1987, before some of you were born. Life was different back then, okay? You had to try a little bit harder, but just to put it in perspective, you could smoke when you're sitting at your desk. You could smoke inside buildings, okay? Those are things that this generation doesn't know about. Glad we got rid of that. Okay, it's a healthier Corps now. However, if the question is, you know, have I ever been treated any different? Maybe somebody thought that they could treat me differently, but never experienced it. Maybe it's because I had an attitude. Maybe I show that outwardly, I'm not sure. But confidence in yourself, I think, is what makes a difference. And that's just not for women, that's for men as well.
Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, I can't say I had the same experience. I was actually discriminated against, and not just on my male side, but the African American side as well. Going in on a male-dominated field, that's what was the toughest. Trying to be a welder, I had actually men come up to me and tell me that I need to be a storekeeper or I need to be a yeoman. So nothing against them, but I just wanted to work with my hands, and I felt that I can do it just as good as the male can. So that actually put fire in me to do better and be better. And so as I was coming up through the ranks, I did have some men because there was no one before me. I had no one to look up, and you can't be what you can't see. So I had to actually make that trail for somebody else to be there and see that you could be a damage controlman female in a male-dominated field, and you could become a chief petty officer or a senior chief. And there's still an open branch for a master chief that's open, because I was the only senior chief in the whole Coast Guard as a female in a damage control rate, and now that I'm out, there is none. So we just still lacking on those male-dominated ratings, and it's unfortunate, but it's getting better. But it was unfortunate back then, and I had a rough road coming up through the ranks.
Thank you. Now, when I was going through the military, especially going through the academy, there was a time where, you know, as a woman, I felt like we didn't hang out with other women that often because we didn't want to be seen as, oh, you're hanging out with women. We want to try to fit in with the guys' club. And I think that was probably a mistake. I mean, again, as you mentioned, Sergeant Major, that times were different back then. What do you have to say for young recruits coming up today, and especially women recruits? Is there anything that they can do to change that perception, to change perception of women in the military? Is there anything that they can do to support each other, or to do a better job, I guess, than what we did, what we've experienced in the past? And this time, I'll start with you, Chief Petty Officer.
Just be you. It's all about you being yourself and not trying to be somebody that you're not, because it will be shown later on that you are faking it till you make it, so to speak. So just be yourself, and definitely grab somebody that can mentor you, because you can have a mentor, and that person will guide you on the steps that you need to go. I wish I had somebody to tell me which way to go, and I didn't have that. So definitely grab hold of somebody that can mentor you, and have an adversary, somebody that can speak up for you as well, and give you those pointers that you need to, which way that you need to go.
Thank you.
I have to agree with Senior Chief. Absolutely, have a mentor. You know, if it doesn't have to be someone in uniform, it can be your dad, your brother, your sister. All those things matter, but they have to have substance. And you have to look up to them. But I will say, in my job, not only am I the Depot Sergeant Major where we do the recruit training, but I'm also the Sergeant Major for our Eastern Recruiting Region. And so what that means is the recruiters go out and they touch the public, and they're feeling and they're looking around for that best qualified candidate. Those female candidates, those are the ones that are sitting back in your hometowns, on the couch, maybe shopping at the mall. Those are the ones that we need to train up and get some confidence to come to recruit training, to support and defend this country. But you can't really talk to America like that. You have to have a proof source. So I would say, if I'm talking to any young ladies coming to any military service, it's going to be about how confident I can get them before they ship to training, to where you are right now. The second thing I'm going to talk to them about is, what is the whole purpose of them wanting to join any military service? There has to be a reason. And that reason should be not for themselves, to be quite frank about it. It's for a better purpose. It's to serve all of us in this room.
Thank you.
I just want to piggyback a little bit. Definitely make sure if you see something, say something. Don't have a voice, because a lot of times we came up through the ranks and we didn't have a voice. So make sure you have a voice and you stand by that voice that you attained.
You know, I think though a lot of times if something happens, and again, this was back, I would say 90s when I was serving, women didn't speak up, because if you spoke up about something, you were labeled, that girl, and then you would be possibly treated differently, and so it was just easy just to shut up and go along. Do you think that still exists, or is it changed now?
Well, for me, it's getting better. You still have some that don't say anything, especially if you're looking at the sexual harassment percentage. So you definitely have some that's still kind of hesitant on not trying to be an outcast. But I just say, speak up and reap whatever's going to come to you, good or bad.
Now, can you guys share any stories of success? One moment where you were serving and you're like, wow, I'm really doing this. I think a lot of times we go into the service and you're still nervous, and even with the greatest training, you don't really know how you're going to fit in. You report to your first unit. When was that moment where you felt like, wow, I'm really doing this. I really belong. This is my passion. This is my calling. This is what I'm meant to do. And I'll start with Sergeant Major.
Okay, I'm glad you started with me first, because I got a short memory. My one oh wow moment was in 2007. It was Christmas. We were deployed. I missing my family. But the part that I didn't tell you is that, I had a son, had a family. My son wanted to be a Marine, so he joined and he became a reservist. I didn't know his unit was in Haditha Dam at the same time that I was in Fallujah. My general knew this information. It may seem kind of crazy, a mom not knowing where her kid is, but at the time, I think life happens. I knew my son was in the Marines. I didn't know his unit was deploying, and I sure as heck didn't know he was within 200 miles from me. So Christmas morning, my general tells me, Sergeant Major, put your stuff, let's go get on this bird. So at the time, it was a Osprey B-22 that we took up to Haditha Dam from Fallujah. We're landing on the tarmac, and I said, I see this big, bulky kid out there. My son is 6'2", looks just like me. Now that was a proud moment for me. Proudest moment I had ever in country, to be there with my son, young Lance Corporal Mannis, supporting and defending this country. It was that moment right there where I realized good things happen to people who serve, not just serve their God, but serve their country. So.
And that's a great story.
One of my proudest moments, I had many, but one of them I had, of course, being a DC, it was just hard to kind of fit in with the males in the department. So there was I don't know if the ship was just taking on water, but we had to go out and do a search and rescue because Coast Guard also do search and rescue. So the ship was taking on, their boat was taking on water, and in order to get down to plumb and patch their ship, somebody had to dive down into the engine room because the engine room had flooded and plumb and patched the ship up, their ship. So they were like, and there was a pipe across it, so only a small person can get down. Now we're talking like 20 years ago, so I was much smaller then. So at that time, someone had to go under that pipe and do the plumbing and patching, come up for air, and try to go back down under that pipe. And so they were like, you, DC3, come here. And I'm like, oh, now you need me. So they told me, go down there, plumb and patch that ship, come up for air when you can, and get down. So that was a proud moment because I felt I belonged there, and now that they really needed me, they did show that they needed me for something. So it made me feel proud that I was able to contribute to saving that ship.
Great. What a great story. Oh, a lovely story. Now, you guys have both served long, illustrious careers, and looking back over your careers, I know there's been ups and downs. Is there anything that you'd want to tell your younger self as you were joining to say, give them advice? If you could talk to yourself and say, here's something, a pitfall to avoid, here's something that I would recommend, not doing or doing differently before you continue for the next 20, 30 years. And I'll start with you, Sergeant Major.
Okay. I would say the best thing that I could give advice to you would be take the opportunity. Somebody challenges you, take it. Challenge them right back. Show what you got. When I was a young Lance Corporal, I don't think that, I was trying. I was the honor grad out of boot camp, but that was easy to me. I was already 24 years old. I already had a focus. I knew what I wanted. My dad had prepared me for the things that the Marine Corps was going to give. But I was not a self-starter. In my mind, I could have done things a lot faster, better, if I would have taken the challenge. That spark didn't happen for me until I became an NCO, a non-commissioned officer, and that's when things started to roll real fast. Okay? So that's what I would offer you. Don't wait. Take the opportunity.
That's good.
Well, with that opportunity comes education. So I wish that I was able to pursue that at an earlier time in my career. So definitely take the opportunities that the education that is being offered to you, because I didn't do it until I was already 20 years in the military. I didn't have any children at the time, and I wound up having kids, getting married well after my 20-year mark. I did 29 years, and my kids are 8, like she mentioned. But once I had my children is when I realized, hey, I need an education, because I can't really tell my kid to go to school if I don't even have one. So it was the education piece is very important. So take advantage of this money that we're given, that the military is offering you, because I wish I had somebody to tell me. I would have had 2 masters or 3 masters by now had I took it early on in my career.
It's definitely some really good advice. A lot of times we talk about the military and we really focus on the serious side of it. The fact that you're most likely going to deploy at some time, you're most likely going to go to war sometime, you're most likely going to have to face some tough situations. But I also think the military can also be very funny at times, and there's some comical moments. You guys have any funny moments that you want to share from your past history in the military of something that just couldn't believe happened, or something that made you laugh, or something that was just totally unexpected?
Don't want to.
Okay, well, she's still serving, so she can't say.
Well, for me, being in my field, I'll tell you the story. My husband, he's logistics, so he's kind of like a paper pusher, if you will. And when I met him, I had a lot of tools in my car. So his friend had needed to get a jack, and so he had told him to go out to the back of my car and get the cables. he was like, man, you got a lot of tools in this car. Why you got so many tools? And he's like, oh, that's my girlfriend's tools. She got everything. So I had plumbers, I had wrenches, I had, you name it, I had it. And then he also had bought me a washer and dryer when I had got my house built well before I had met him. But my housewarming gift was a washer and dryer. So his friends brought the washer and dryer over to my house. And when they dropped it off, he was like, are you going to hook it up for her? I mean, you're just going to leave it in the garage? He was like, yeah, she got it. She'll do it when she get home. The guy was like, what do you mean she'll do it? So I, unfortunately, have the to-do list in my house. Like, the toilet is racking. I got to fix the toilet. So I do everything. I showed him how to change his brake pads. Like, I do everything. I do everything.
Sergeant Major, are you sure you don't want to add anything?
You know, I was just thinking, I do have a funny story, and it just makes me look stupid, so I'll just tell you. I'll just tell you. So she told you I was a drill instructor. I've been a drill instructor 3 different times. Once at Parris Island, where our recruit training is. We're 100 years old, right? The second one, I did 2 tours at Officer Candidate School in Quantico, Virginia. So I know what I'm doing, right? You would think. So in 1992, when I was a brand new drill instructor, I told you I had these kids, right? At least one of them. I had 3. So I'm a drill instructor, and back in 92, you could actually bring your kids to work. Seriously, so I did. At the time, I was on a quota, so I actually worked in the field. So we call it basic warrior training. Bunch of trees, compass course. I'm setting the scene, okay, so stay with me. It's at night. The recruits are coming through the compass course. You can't see anything, you can't hear anything except female recruits. Now, female recruits screaming at night, you know what that sounds like, right? When they step in water, when they get on the wrong course. Okay, so imagine that. Back to my kids. They're 12, 10, and 8. Boys. They are cammyed up in the camouflage uniform. I got some face paint on them. No one knows that my kids are there. Well, they're not supposed to. So we have a bunch of female recruits going through. There are drill instructors with them. My kids are sitting in the back of an open pickup truck, sitting there like this, drinking some Kool-Aid. Now this is dark, you can't see anything. But the minute one of them said, Tommy, give me some Kool-Aid, you could hear this male voice. Drill instructor comes out of the tree line over to this truck and starts screaming at these recruits because she thought that they were female recruits.
Oh, wow.
My poor kids have post-traumatic stress from that one incident, and I'm a terrible mom. I know.
Yeah, but one of them still joined the military. One of them joined the Marines, so it
He's
did
not
something
that
right.
I love my boys. I love them to death. But yeah, we did some crazy things back then.
So we have over 50 years of military experience up here in the front. I'd like to open it up to the audience to ask any questions that you would like to ask of these women. Yes, right over there.
Microphone over, but I want to make sure that you wait and speak when you get the microphone. Okay?
Thanks.
Midshipman First Class Abby Purdue. Sergeant Major, this is a question for you. A couple weeks ago, I was at a conference with Major General Reynolds, and she's, of course, she was the commanding officer of Parris Island a couple years ago. Somebody asked her a question, do you think that women and men should be integrated at the recruit depot? And she said no. She said she think it would be bad for the women training, it would distract them, or it would not let them be the best they can be. Do you agree with her, Sergeant Major?
Okay, so Major General Reynolds, her and I had worked together before. And if you saw her, you saw, when we worked together, we're like twin towers, right? Because she's 6 foot tall as well. So what she meant by that when she said this is that we are integrated. At recruit training, 61% of the time, females and males are training at the same time, rifle range. taking physical fitness tests, taking academics. It's all together. So I think that's really what she meant. Should they train together in the beginning? I don't believe so. I say that because initially when we get females coming to recruit training, they don't have a lot of confidence. It's true. So when they take that first physical fitness test, and if you were to put a male platoon next to the female platoon on day 14 when they're running their physical fitness test, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, it's not going to be pretty is what I'm going to say. The males naturally are going to run faster. There's nothing wrong with that. We know that happens. So what does that do to their confidence? So we don't need that in recruit training the first month or so. When we get to build up some confidence in the second and third phase, absolutely stick them together. Because remember what I was saying about that competition and opportunity? That's where it all comes in. So there is nothing greater than to see in third phase, after they've been training for 12 weeks, male and female running side by side, and the females in front. I know, right? So what does that do to all the males? No, it makes them run faster. And that's what we want, right? It's all good.
Thank you, Sergeant Major.
You're welcome.
All right. Great. Do we have another question? Anyone? Oh, over here.
We can hear you.
Oh, that's probably good.
Just scream it.
Hello, Cadet Gula from VMI. It's a question for Sergeant Major. So those of us who are potentially going to OCS this summer, since you're
Ever.
former BI,
Yeah.
DI, what's
Okay.
some advice you could give us to kind of get through it?
Keep running. Get down here and do some push-ups with me. Let's just get right in it. Continue to train. You know, you look like you're doing some good training now. Keep it up. Okay, that's exactly, because when you step off the bus at Officer Candidate School in Quantico, it's no joke. So, and get some rest. You look kind of tired. All right.
Yeah. Sir, right over here.
All right, good morning, Senior Chief. Good morning, Sergeant Major. I'm Petty Officer Second Class Ronald Freeman. I just had a question for you, too. This question was asked last night to a male panelist who was on stage, but with the integration of women, female officers into the submarines and females now in the Army Rangers, what are your views for the drafting of women in the future, if that passes?
You want to take that, Senior? Okay, so I don't want to hog the panel here, but I'm a little opinionated. So my whole feeling is, if they can pass a standard, if there's a standard without lowering that standard, that's exactly what should be given them, to them. Have the opportunity, take advantage of it.
I agree totally. I mean, once you, like she mentioned earlier about opportunity, there's our opportunity to show ourselves. So take it and jump on it.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, both of you. My name is Chief Petty Officer Sharon Rogers.
Hey,
Served
Chief.
22 years in the Navy, currently Naval Science Instructor John F. Kennedy. My question, Senior Chief, actually, I'm an OS, so I've experienced a lot of the things you've experienced in the male-dominated rate, so I totally understand. Sergeant Major,
Yes, ma'am.
from my recollection, there has not been any Sergeant Majors in the Marine Corps that are female?
You mean the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps? That's correct.
Okay, and you're coming up on 30 years, you are retiring.
Yes,
Were you
ma'am.
ever considered in your career to possibly be that first female Sergeant Marine Corps, Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps?
Only in my mind.
You seem like a perfect fit.
Only in my mind, right? No, actually, it takes a lot more qualifications than what I currently have to be the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. I'm currently right now working at a 1-star level. My general is a 1-star. You have to get to that second and third level to get there, and I just kind of ran out of time. But thanks for asking. Seriously, you made her walk that whole way? You're right here.
Apologize. Hi, Cadet Lee DeMcLean from Texas A&M Corps Cadets. My question is to both of you. As a former NCO myself, I know there's a handful of prior enlisted cadets here, and most of my mentors throughout my entire career have been NCOs, and NCOs only. So it's very difficult and very challenging for me to seek mentorship from officers. But the one thing I've asked officers before, and I'd like to get both of y'all's opinion, is what are some advice that you two could provide for prior enlisted, prior NCOs here that are making the transition to the officer corps?
I say just keep trying. I mean, and then too, earlier it was mentioned that you don't have to just look into your area for that expertise and that mentorship. You can go outside and look for that mentorship as well. But keep trying, keep pushing. I mean, only thing that person, they're the one who's losing out, not you. So just keep on pushing on trying to get that mentorship going.
And I'd just like to congratulate you for making that, that leap. That's a leap of faith. Absolutely. Going to the dark side. But with that, you know, there's a lot of people that are going to be coming behind you that want to do the same thing. So continue to set that example for them.
Yeah, I would want to add on to what they've said, that if you're looking for a mentor, if you look within your battalion or somewhere within your unit and find someone who you believe is having a good career and ask them to be a mentor, I think most people would not say no. It would be an honor to be a mentor. And then just remember to pay it back. When it's your turn to be a mentor, please take that opportunity and help the younger recruits coming up and helping them in their career. Do we have another question over here?
Cadet First Class Sailor Gilbert, United States Air Force Academy. You talked a lot about inspiring confidence in young women and young recruits. How can we as leaders best inspire that confidence and in those young recruits we may get early on in our careers?
Well, a lot of times the confidence is coming in as a new recruit. You don't really have any at the moment, especially when you're a young 17, 18-year-old coming in. So with you being their voice, because I know when I was coming through the ranks, no one was there to speak for me. When that guy told me that I should have been a yeoman or SK, I went to my DC-1 at the time, and he just said, oh, just get over it. So being able to make sure that, and that kind of built my it went like really down because I didn't have nobody to help me build that confidence. I couldn't even look to my supervisor at the time. So being able to have somebody that can be your voice, because most E3s, E4s, E5s isn't gonna say too much. So being that NCO or that chief that's gonna make sure that that person, that you're taking care of your people and reach down as when you get up in those high ranks.
I have to agree with Senior Chief, you know, climb that ladder. But like with someone like yourself, maybe setting that example, you don't even know it. You're walking down the street wearing that uniform, looking sharp. Some little girl, some little boy's looking at you like, oh, look at her, okay? And never tarnish that image. You're welcome.
Yeah, excuse me, you really don't know how much you impact people. I had a female come up to me, we were on the ship, and I was a DC-2 at the time, and she came up to me years later, and I remember her vaguely, but she said I had made such an impact on her because at the time, well, something got stuck in the HTC system, which is the HVAC system, the toilet system, the sewage system. And her being able to come to a female didn't really blemish her confidence in if it was a male that she had to go to resolve those type of issues. So it was easier for her to come to a female knowing that a female was in that field. So at the time, I didn't know that I impacted her that much, but it built her confidence that she didn't have to go to a male and look down upon trying to get an issue fixed.
I think we have time for one more question. All right, right over here.
Senior Chief, Sergeant Major, thank you for being here. Thank you for your service. Cadet Gabi from Virginia Tech, Corps Cadets. My question is, do you think the DoD and society has been gender equitable in providing resources for women coming back from deployments, perhaps with PTSD?
Okay, so I'll take that. Yes. Short answer is yes. Could we always improve upon the opportunity, everything that's out there for us? Probably. But I'm not retired yet, so I can't really talk about that.
I'm not DOD, Coast Guard is actually a DOT, but I don't think there's enough that we are doing for our people that are coming back from those deployments, whether it's PTSD or whether it's homelessness. I mean, it's just not enough that's being done. And we just got to try to figure out how to way to get more improvement on that.
Yeah, having had people that I know commit suicide after serving, it doesn't seem like it affects women or men differently. I mean, it may present in a certain ways, and I think that the VA is doing a decent job, but they can, as Sergeant Major said, they can definitely do better. And they're working really, really hard to improve the problem, improve the situation. And part of it is also training civilian physicians to ask the right questions, because a lot of times when a person goes into a civilian physician, they may not even ask if they'd served. And so if they said, oh, I'm feeling down, they might not think it's serious. And they would say, oh, whatever, it's just, maybe you just had a baby, or maybe it's this. They don't know to ask those follow-up questions. Oh, did you serve? Were you deployed? Did something happen? So getting that training out there within the civilian population, and that's something that is being worked on. And it doesn't seem like it affects men and women differently. It seems like it's across the board, and it's a problem that needs to be addressed. So one final thought, ladies. You guys did an amazing job on this panel today, by the way. You guys have such insight and inspiration in your stories. Can you give us a final thought for the passing, for these future leaders of our country? What would you like to say to them as they go out and serve the country later on in their lives?
Okay. Well, first of all, I would just like to thank you for letting us sit here and tell you our story. I hope that every one of you remembers this, and maybe in about 20 years from now, when you get the opportunity and you're asked to come sit in front of a panel of cadets, that you take the opportunity and tell your story. Don't waste 1 minute. And go out and do great things. Who knows, the next commandant, the next vice admiral might be sitting right in this room right here, and that could be you. So, thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. It's been a long time since I've had some young people listen to me.
Senior Chief Petty Officer.
I would piggyback on that, but only thing I would say is take advantage of everything. I mean, sit at the table. That's that lean in. Sheryl Sandberg, sit at the table, and that means everybody. Be that voice. Don't have your people feel because you were not the one that was there to help them. So just make sure that you look after your people and inspire them to do better, inspire them to be better. Like I said, I wish I had somebody that I had someone to look up to like that. And now that you're going to be in, the ones that raise your hand, people are going to look up to you as E3s, as E4s. Set the example. Be the example. That's all I have. Thank you for listening.
Well, thank you both. Let's give them a round of applause. And I just want to again thank the American Veterans Center for hosting this panel and Northrop Grumman for being our presenting sponsor of this panel. So thank you guys for coming, and I'll turn it back over to Jim.